Yo, yo, what it do? What it be? It's your boy, A&T, and as you can see, I'm still playing COD. Now, this ain't no conspiracy, I'm talking US history and giving y'all my POV. Still freestyling up on intro, so check your info, bro. I'm from CO and I'm an CoINTELPro. These other streamers like 6911. What that mean? Translation, they tell 50. My fofo, make sure all your kids don't grow. Heard that from a goat. Nah, for real. I'm just playing though. Thanks to Eddie Snow, we know for a fact, no rap cap, that the government is spying on its citizens. That might be hard to swallow, like a fifth of hen cinnamon or a British vitamin. It's A&T. I'm spazzing out like I ain't took no Ritalin. Dropping the CoINTELPro video, so let's get it in. Alright. I'll chill out with the bars, y'all. Let's get into the video. As I was saying, thanks to Edward Snowden, we know for a fact that the American government is actively spying on us. It's U.S. citizens. Now, this revelation really shouldn't be nothing new, though, because America hasn't just been spying on us, but they've been carrying out espionage, blackmail, and even murdering people that they considered a threat to, like, quote-unquote, our democracy, national security, or could potentially expose their secrets or government secrets. I think their secrets are really what they're worried about, though, but we're going to be looking at Operation CoINTELPro, as you could tell by the title of the video and the bars I was spitting earlier. But we also going to be discussing J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI's involvement in suppressing and harassing minority groups and their leaders. I'm also going to theorize and give my personal opinions on why Hoover and the Bureau only went after minority groups and civil rights activists, while completely ignoring domestic terrorist groups like the KKK, and also turning a blind eye to the American mafia and all the illegal shit that they had going on. But before I get into the civil rights and Cold War eras, let's talk about the man himself, John Edgar Hoover, aka J. Edgar Hoover, the first and longest tenured FBI president in history, probably one of the most controversial figures in not just American history, in history in general, really. I'm gonna be impartial when talking about Hoover's accolades and accomplishments, but there's for sure some rumors that I'm gonna have to address, because as a caged elephant once said, there ain't no rest for the wicked. But let's go all the way back to January 1st, 1895. J. Edgar Hoover was born over 100 years ago. Think about that. I'm not even going to go too deep into his childhood or nothing like that, but the man was born not even 50 years after the Civil War ended. So I'm sure his views on anybody who wasn't white probably weren't very progressive. Not to say that there wasn't white people who thought of black people or natives as equal, but there was very few, probably. I think it's safe to assume there was very few. I mean, 12 out of our 18 of our first presidents owned slaves. So it's safe to say a lot of Americans at the time were probably very ignorant and hateful of anyone who looked different. And as much as it's progressed through the years, there are still those ignorant people that exist that have hatred of their fellow man embedded in their roots. But if you're in 2024 and you still believe that you're elite because of your skin color or your bloodline, put that meth pipe down, man, and prove you different. Take a shot of that bleach for your boy, man. I'm just saying, especially if you a racist, for sure. Anyways, J. Edgar Hoover, when he turned 18, he got a job for the Library of Congress, where he learned how to gather and combine information. Then when he went to college, he became interested in law and became particularly interested in Anthony Comstock, who, quite frankly, I'm ashamed to share a first name with, because that sociopath was literally scared of women. He didn't want anyone else to learn about or even see a pussy in a book, because he was probably afraid they'd put his face on the page instead. Now that's a double entendre. In July of 1917, though, Hoover was hired by the Department of Justice, and soon after he became head of the Alien Enemy Bureau. Now this wasn't no precursor to the Space Force or had nothing to do with extraterrestrials at all. Y'all know it was geared towards foreigners and immigrants, and it really, just the name itself, the Alien Enemy Bureau, is wild. It paints a picture of just what they thought of foreigners and immigrants at the time. But basically, Hoover was authorized by the President Woodrow Wilson at the beginning of World War I to arrest any foreigners that were disloyal to America and jail them without trial, and then probably have them deported afterwards. So then, after harassing German immigrants and violating their civil rights, in August of 1919, at just 24 years old, Hoover became head of the Bureau of Investigation's General Intelligence Division, which focused on harassing Italian, Irish, and other European ethnic groups as America's first Red Scare was beginning. and the fear of communism was sometimes used to violate foreigners' civil rights and then deport them afterwards. Now, one of Hoover's first assignments was to carry out the controversial Palmer raids, and after the raids concluded in 1920, he and his assistant George Roosh, I don't know how you pronounce it, but they started conducting investigations on activists such as Marcus Garvey, Rose Stokes, Cyril Briggs, Emma Goldman, Alexander Berkman, and Felix Frankfurter, who the latter Hoover described as the most dangerous man in the United States at one point in time, which, keep that in mind, because during Hoover's reign, being a danger to America meant that you were probably doing something right. But after the Palmer raid sometime in 1920, Hoover was initiated as a Freemason too, and just a year later in 1921, he just so happened to become head of the Bureau of Investigation, aka the future FBI. Now, remember what I said about Anthony Comstock? Well, Hoover was such a big fan of his, he fired every single woman in the Bureau, and then banned any future hiring of anyone without a Y chromosome. He basically turned the FBI into one big old sausage party. You know, that was good old Hoover. But after he became head of the FBI, he was a pivotal figure in bringing down damn near every bank robber of that era. I'm not even going cap. He definitely did that. John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, Babyface Nelson, all them were killed, and Hoover had a hand with all of them. And it was all during this period that the term public enemy number one would be coined and born and used as a propaganda term against the bank robbers, who were less menaces to the public and more of a menace to the bank cartels of America, aka the government. And were some innocent people killed or harmed during these robberies? Yes, absolutely, and I would never support that. However, these bank robbers were no more dangerous than the U.S. government that would go on to poison their own citizens with poisoned alcohol during the same era, might I add. I digress, though. Let's keep this thing rolling about Hoover and the Bureau. At the same time, during the 1920s, not only was the Bureau hunting bank robbers and bootleggers, a new threat named communism had arrived. I was talking about that earlier. Now, this foreign radical ideology had swept through Russia and was gaining popularity in China, which led to civil wars and drastic reforms in both countries. Now, the fear that communist ideals would gain traction in America terrified the American government, which led to massive propaganda campaigns against communism, and the fear of communism, or the second Red Scare, would sweep through America. Now, after dealing with some of America's most dangerous criminals and bank robbers, and all that, Hoover and the Bureau's power and reputation only grew. And Hoover made sure that everybody knew that he was the dude running the plays and calling the shots. And anyone who tried to steal glory from him was put on career-killing assignments or treated with distaste by Hoover himself. Now, one agent who suffered this wrath was Melvin Purvis, who also helped take down some of the most famous bank robbers too. But after Purvis, started stealing some of Hoover's thunder, Hoover maneuvered him right the fuck out the Bureau. Now, Hoover and the Bureau's power only grew more during the 30s and World War II, and so did Hoover's hatred of communism. In the late 1930s, FDR basically gave Hoover the green light to investigate potential foreign espionage and spy on communists and fascists that potentially may have been operating in America. Now, the FBI also secretly worked with British intelligence in the 40s to intercept messages from Soviet and American spies, which President Truman didn't even fucking know about. And the CIA wasn't even told about the shit until 1952 by Hoover, basically just to flex on him. Like, oh, y'all think y'all Central Intelligence, bro? We've been spying on you, the president, British spies, Russian spy, bro. We spying on everybody out here. And y'all think you the CIA? Nah, bro. Everything you see here is because of us. We started this shit. We'll end it, fam. This is me. I am him. Edgar Hoover, son, and don't you forget it. But after World War II, we were still in a Cold War with Russia, though. And during the 1950s, immigrant groups and women were looking for civil rights, which Hoover just thought was a bunch of commie bullshit that needed to be stopped immediately. And let me just reiterate the fact that during this whole time, Hoover denied the American Mafia's existence, completely denied it. The American Mafia that I've talked about in my videos, I'll throw a quotation or something in there so y'all can check that shit out. But yeah, the American Mafia that started pretty much around the same time that Hoover took over the Bureau, he completely denied their existence, wouldn't even talk about them. And we not even gonna get into the fact that he completely missed a former Marine turned communist sympathizer coming to America and then assassinating President John F. Kennedy. Now, we not even gonna get into that, but rumor has it that the Mafia had blackmailed the king of blackmail and had some pictures of Hoover and his deputy in extremely personal friend of his, Clyde Tolson. Now, rumors of Tolson and Hoover's alleged relationship have swirled for decades, but there's really no proof to it. But here's one thing that I find odd. It's odd to me that Hoover wouldn't want to be the guy to bring down the mob. I mean, dude straight up wanted all the credit. He was a glory junkie. And why wouldn't he want to be the guy to bring down organized crime in America or its leaders? No, instead he went after minority groups that were already heavily discriminated against and systematically oppressed. Now, whether or not the mob really had dirt on Hoover, like I said, is up for debate. It's up in the air. There's no proof. But what isn't up for debate is the fact that Hoover hated communists and communism. Let me just read. Hoover fucking hated communism and communists. And he tried everything in his power, which, let me tell you, dude had a lot of that. Dude had a lot of power. And he tried everything in his power to create dissension and stifle anyone who was fighting for civil rights. And he was actually more concerned with civil rights groups establishing communist relationships or preaching commie ideals than helping fight actual communism, or even trying to help come to a common ground with these disenfranchised groups that were just wanting, like I said, they just wanted equal rights. They just wanted civil rights, man. And he was doing everything he could to stop black people, natives, and women from voting. Meanwhile, the mob is committing Call of Duty assassination missions in broad daylight and shit. And this was the beacon of justice in America. Like, huh? What the fuck are we doing, y'all? What were we doing? But not to mention that the Klan was actively committing domestic terrorism, bombing shit like the Taliban, killing black people, and he refused to go after them too. He didn't label them a threat to democracy like MLK, Malcolm X, and the Black Panther Party. And while we still on the topic of the 50s and communism and all that, let's talk about Joe McCarthy. Now, we in the midst of the second Red Scare, and the fear of communists led Joe McCarthy to accuse all of his political ops of being communists. If you didn't fuck with Joe McCarthy, you were a commie. And it fucking worked until it didn't. I'm pretty sure if he would have been a decent congressman or whatever the fuck he was, he probably could have got reelected over and over again. I mean, he got reelected based on this campaign, and he was trash as fuck and a fraud and a liar, of course. And he used people's fear of communism to basically earn votes, so it was never gonna last. But I mean, it just goes to show how scared people were of communism that they voted for fucking Joe McCarthy. He has a whole verb out after him, or a whole ideology, McCarthyism. And basically, if you weren't down with America's imperialist interests, systemic oppression of women and its minority citizens, then you were probably a fucking commie too. And with that logic, J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI launched CoINTELPro, aka the Counterintelligence Program. Hoover used this initiative to effectively and illegally spy on U.S. citizens he deemed a danger to the quote-unquote American way of life. And by that I mean spy on civil rights leaders and their groups, infiltrate their groups with informants, create dissension within the groups. And if that didn't work, well, I mean, look at MLK, Fred Hampton, and Medgar Evers. For starters, look how those stories, end up. And then, of course, there's Malcolm X and Huey Newton. All of them fought for civil rights in the 1960s, and tragically none of them would live long enough to see the 1970s. Fucking bullshit. Shameful, really. And I will probably talk about all of those guys in future videos, but for now I'm just going to look at how the FBI targeted them and others in one of the biggest scandals in FBI history, and in American history, not just for the FBI, American history, really. And they also did have spies, quote unquote spies, on the KKK, but they had thousands of KKK members on their payroll as FBI agents, and that comes straight from a KKK member that worked for the Bureau. Plus, I mean, it's even documented by the Bureau themselves that nowhere near as many agents or resources were used to stop the Klan or racism terrorizing minorities as there was on groups trying to organize and stop being attacked by racists, the police, and racist police. Which, I mean, if I could just go off on a rant here for a minute, I mean, Racism and domestic violence run rampant through police ranks, not to mention the corrupt-ass police unions that help hide and tamper with evidence, making a complete mockery of the justice system that they are paid with American tax dollars to uphold. But again, I digress. Back to CoINTELPro. Thank you for coming to my A&T talk. Now, the FBI conducted illegal wiretapping of civil rights leaders' homes and phones. They also used local spies and paid people within these civil rights organizations to either create dissension in the ranks of these progressive organizations, gather information, or both. They would then use this info or dissension to weaken the organization and the movement, which would then, lead to the leader being killed either by their own people, like Malcolm X or Huey Newton, or the leader would be killed by racists like MLK, Medgar Evers, and Fred Hampton. They also kept close tabs on celebrities like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, Aretha Franklin, Jeff Fort, and many other highly publicized figures in the black community, and many others such as Ernest Hemingway and dudes like that. Now, the FBI and Hoover were completely abusing their power, and let me reiterate that what they were doing was completely illegal. They were violating civil rights of American citizens with complete impunity, and nobody could do anything about it for decades. Nobody even knew about it for decades, really, until March 8th, 1971, while the world was watching the fight of the century between Frazier and Ali. A citizens activist group named the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole thousands of classified documents. They then made copies and sent them to major news outlets. Now, none of them picked up the story except for the Washington Post, who broke the story. And then in March 1972, Win Magazine, which was an anti-war journal associated with the War Resisters League, published a complete collection of documents fully exposing the CoINTELPro op to the public. Now, 1% of the docs were devoted to organized crime, 30% were training and procedure manuals, 40% were devoted to political surveillance, 2 cases involved right-wing groups, 10 cases were on surveilling immigrants, 200 cases were on left-wing or liberal groups. Another 14% of the documents were crimes such as robbery, murders, and sexual assault. Now, one of the documents that is particularly disturbing to me is an anonymous letter that the FBI sent to MLK, basically trying to blackmail him into committing suicide because they were basically threatening to expose him for cheating on his wife if he didn't commit suicide or stop what the fuck he was doing, which of course neither one of those never happened. The FBI never exposed him for that, and MLK never committed suicide. He was doing what he did until he got assassinated. Now, Hoover, publicly and in these files, also wasn't shy about expressing his distaste about the Black Panther Party. In fact, he thought they were terrorists. So the FBI paid a Black Panther Party member to draw them a map of the Black Panthers' headquarters and allegedly pass these blueprints to the Chicago Police Department, who would later assassinate Fred Hampton while he slept in his bed. And in 1965, the FBI was working overtime, OT. They were trying to discredit Malcolm X and infiltrate any group associated with him. The full extent of the FBI surveillance on Malcolm and Islamic leaders, and the extent of which they were involved in his assassination, is still up for debate to this day. And get this, in July of 1967, the FBI launched CoINTELPro Black Hate. That is the legit name of the operation. I cannot make this shit up. Now, during Operation Black Hate, they introduced a ghetto informant program and had 23 FBI offices committing espionage against, in their words, black nationalist hate groups. Now guess how many offices were used for espionage against white nationalist hate groups? You guessed it. 0. Zilch. Nada. Forget about it. After all of this got exposed, though, the government created the Church Committee to investigate the CIA, FBI, NSA, all the other 3-letter government organizations. And the Church Committee revealed MK Ultra, and Operation Family Jewels, which I'll talk about more in the future. But they pretty much figured out every major government organization was illegally spying on people, doing highly illegal experiments, murdering and assassinating people, or a combination of the three. And nobody went to jail. Everyone got a slap on the wrist, told them don't get caught doing it again, and everyone went home to their mansions, collected their pensions, and retired happily ever after, because that's what happens when you have the government investigate itself, pretty much. Just see, what exposed the whole CoINTELPro wasn't the government. Government knew about MK Ultra for years. Government knew about the Tuskegee experiments for years, and they did nothing about it. They all classified that shit. It wasn't until the public found out about it. It was a bunch of just regular citizens deciding, hey, what the fuck is the government really doing? Then they figure out that the government is doing highly illegal shit and spying on its citizens, and nothing gets done about it. I mean, they expose it to the media, and then the government, like I said, they investigate themselves like that, and to big shock, nobody gets arrested or anything like that. It's fucking ridiculous. But let me just close out this video by saying that J. Edgar Hoover's legacy is a fucking joke. He had civilians come in and expose him for the bastard that he is, and all the illegal shit that him and the Bureau was doing, and all of the rumor and innuendos about him. I mean, I don't know if they're true or not, but the fact that he wouldn't go after the mafia or the Klan, and instead decided that, you know, minorities were America's biggest threat, and, you know, giving minorities and women civil rights, that was just too much, and that was some communist shit that needed to be stopped. I mean, yeah, honestly, fuck J. Edgar Hoover, honestly. I mean, he was on the wrong side of history. A black man has been president, and he was a damn good one. I don't give a fuck about which side of the political spectrum you fall under or none of that. I'm independent. I fuck the two-party system and all that shit. I mean, this shit is a joke anyways. Really, look at who our last two elections and who our choices have been. I mean, and tell me that this shit is not a fucking joke. But again, thank you for coming to my A&T talk. I'm gonna get into Edward Snowden in a future video, because if you think the government stopped spying on us, oh my god, you poor sweet summer child, I got some shit for you. But let me again reiterate the fact that just some normal citizens decided to band together and really investigate what the fuck the government was really doing, and they are the real American heroes. We didn't even know who did it. J. Edgar Hoover didn't even know who broke into the FBI headquarters and media until they fucking wrote a book about it, and even then we still don't even know who all did it. Now, some of them have come forward after all these years, but they should be given medals, because they are real American heroes, just like Peter Buxton. But y'all be safe, and Edward Snowden too. But y'all be safe. Don't get smoked. It's been your boy, A&T. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you dislike it, I'm sure my political views and shit like that will get me dislikes. I don't give a fuck. Those are mine, and I'm going to stand 10 toes down on them. Leave a comment, and, let me know what you think of the video. I'm always down for criticism and all that. It's whatever. Yeah, subscribe, ring the damn bell, and turn on them notifications so you could stay tuned for all the hot conspiracy content and history content that I got dropping soon. Y'all be safe. Like I said, don't get smoked. I'm out. Peace.
Reloading! Death will have to wait. Planting Claymore!
Hostile UAV in the area.
Sniper KIA.